So today we're talking about redox signaling molecules. We're going to find out just what those are and why we should care. We'll discuss it with an atomic physicist who's been doing the research into metabolism, mitochondria, and probably several other things that begin with M in the medical profession. He's the one that's developed this method to create these molecules, if I'm understanding this. Has developed a line of products, including a skincare product, which is very revolutionary. We'll be talking about that. It's actually good medicine. Dr. Gary Samuelson is a researcher, an author, and one of the scientific minds behind the ASEA product line that use this technology. He was awarded his PhD in atomic medical physics from the University of Utah, and he's been working on stabilizing nanoparticle structures integral to several promising technologies. He serves as the chair of the ASEA Science Advisory Council. Welcome, Dr. Gary Samuelson. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Did I get all that right? Is all that information I just said about you true and accurate and to the best of your knowledge honest?
Yes, it's honest, I suppose. A little bit puffy.
a little puffy. All right, so we'll try to tear you down to size here. What the heck is atomic medical physics, and what exactly do you study?
Atomic physics has to do with how molecules fit together, or atoms fit together. You use the tools of quantum theory and other such things to realize how these molecules fit together in the field structures and et cetera. This is especially important in the processes of life, of course, which are the most fascinating types of processes that exist with molecules, where everything that takes place in a living cell, for example, has to do with these tiny little micro machines that have to communicate with one another and coordinate their activities with one another. It all has to do with atomic physics and molecular physics. And that's exactly the reason why I wanted to study this in the very beginning, because, my goodness, I wanted to figure out what made up life, what made it work.
Yeah, that's actually my next question. Was there some specific event in your life or something that spurred you on into this topic?
I'm sorry, I missed the audio on that.
Oh, I'm just asking, was there something specific in your life or some event that got you interested in this topic, or how'd you get started down this road?
My father had a PhD in physics also. I've always been a curious kid. So when I was a little boy, I would be the little guy that would, instead of playing in the playground and trying to make baskets, I'd be taking apart and dissecting leaves. I'd be doing things like that to try to understand how this beautiful structure and function of life actually exists. So I guess I was kind of born with it. So born with this curiosity, and it brought me to the point where I got my PhD in physics in order to try to figure it out.
Well, I saw you started a blog this year, and so in reading some of your blog posts, I'd say you're also a little bit of an artist and perhaps a little bit of spiritual seeker. Is that also accurate?
That's true. When I was also young, I had the, I don't know what you'd call it. It was a paradox. You know, I wondered if God existed and if these things are true. And so I, for several years, looked through a great deal of spiritual literature. And so, yes, I do have that part of me too. And actually, it's part of the reason why I became so analytical, because I wanted to figure out if God exists or not.
Well, it's very interesting paradox that most of the greatest scientists are also some of the most spiritual people, because it's like Socrates says, the more you know, the more you know you don't know. So I would think that somebody like you does research into just mind-bending aspects of how amazing the human body is. It must just be awe-inspiring sometimes.
I don't think anybody really who understands the magnitude of physical process and really what the world is all about can not at least consider the question, is there other intelligent being or design happening out there?
It seems like it got to be somebody smarter than us that's running this whole thing somehow. So
yeah.
Well, let's get to the topic. So you didn't coin this phrase, but you use it a lot. It's redox signaling molecules. So let's take it one step at a time. What's a redox?
Okay, well, redox means the reduction and oxidation of molecules. It takes place in nature every time there is a reaction, a chemical reaction. And so, in the sense of what happens inside the cells and what I'm interested in my area of research, signaling takes place when there's a reduction or an oxidation. You've probably heard of oxidants.
Sure.
And oxidants oxidize things. Reductants do the opposite. They actually deliver electrons rather than take away electrons. So reduction is the delivery of electrons, and oxidation means the removal of electrons.
Okay.
And this happens all the time in the fluids of life, or the vital fluids that are inside the cells and all around the cells. The atoms and molecules need to be able to react one with another through this medium of salt and water. So they end up oxidizing and reducing this medium. And the process of doing that is called redox, for short.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then they signal, there's a signaling that happens between the cells?
Actually, between the molecules.
Between the molecules, I'm sorry. Yeah,
right.
Between the molecules.
For antioxidants, for example, they're able to take oxidants and reduce them into their reduced form. And that's a sort of a signaling, because every time these little molecules are reduced, they change shape and function. So according to the redox potential, or the potential of reduction and oxidation in these fluids, the whole mechanism of life and all of the messengers that are passing through and all of the things that are taking place, including the expression of genes, are affected. And the genes then express the molecules and the things that are necessary in order to restore a homeostatic balance, or redox potential, correct redox potential to these fluids.
Okay.
So it's a homeostatic balance, a restoration of balance inside the cells that we're talking about.
Okay, so that's the stabilizing process then.
Right.
Okay.
And it takes place through signaling. So when there, for example, too many oxidants in a cell, it signals the genes inside the nucleus that they need to produce certain things to fix the problem.
Okay.
And hopefully then that action from the genes will fix the problem, and homeostatic balance will be restored again in the cell. It's a signaling process. So very important to detection of damaged cells, as well as repair and replacement of damaged cells inside living tissue.
Okay, so when we then ingest antioxidants, all that good stuff, the blueberries and goji berries that we should be eating, then tell us how that interacts in this process.
Well, often you'll have an excess of oxidants inside the body, which are there because of cell damage. So maybe could I back off a step here?
Sure,
and just
sure.
kind of go through this? Inside the cell, there are mitochondria, and they're producing these signaling molecules in large quantities. There are anywhere from 200 to 5,000 mitochondria in every cell. They produce these signaling molecules, which are included in the species redox molecules. Hydrogen peroxide, superoxides, hypochlorites, very reactive species. They're called reactive oxygen species. They produce these reactive oxygen species. The antioxidants are there to eliminate the oxidants, and they do so on a continual basis. When there's damage to the cell, that balance is disturbed and the oxidants start to build up. That marks or signals damage in the tissue, in the cell. That buildup of oxidants is called oxidative stress. It's a signaling process, very much like smoke signals. smoke has oxidants in it. It has free radicals in it. It can be bad for your environment. Well, these oxidants inside the cell, if they're not taken care of and controlled by the cell, they build up. And these smoke signals then are the mechanisms that tell the cell something is wrong and start the process by which the cell repairs itself. So you're starting to see how important this process is. These redox signaling processes in the cell actually are the fundamental processes that detect damage in the cell and then start the repair and replace mechanisms to either repair the cell or kill the cell and then have it replaced by normal, healthy surrounding cells.
I think I actually even understood that. That was very well said. For those of us with smaller minds where you need to use small words and speak short sentences, I think I actually did follow that. So tell us what the metaphorical smoke signals might be as they express themselves in our physical body. We're talking about inflammation here, right? Any kind of inflammation in all parts of the body?
That's right. One of them is hydrogen peroxide, superoxides, hypochlorites. These are actually more than metaphorical. These are the true redox signaling molecules, as I call them.
Okay.
That are inside the cell to signal these things. When something goes wrong, like I mentioned before, the cell can either repair itself, but it has another mechanism by which it will kill itself. It's called apoptosis.
Right.
And this happens when there's too much smoke and it hasn't gone away for about 2 hours.
Okay.
And the cell then will start a process of killing itself. This is very important, by the way. Cells, for example, that do not have these processes in place, like cancer cells, for example, become immortal, unable to kill themselves, unable to detect damage, and unable to repair themselves. And so that is actually where the mitochondria have broken down. They no longer are carrying on this network of redox signaling that helps this process take place. And we all know what happens then when a cancer cell turns rogue in our body.
Right. Well, so we are talking about this new field of science then called epigenetics, where you've pretty well established that the field that the genes are in is more important than the actual genetic blueprint upon which it draws upon. Am I saying that correctly?
Oh, that is absolutely true.
Okay.
In the last 10 years of science, we have turned away from genetic expression to be what causes life to happen to the signaling messengers that deliver the signals back and forth between the cells. I mean, one great example is stem cell technology. Mm-hmm. If you take a stem cell and put it in a heart, it will turn into a heart cell. Well, how does it know that it should become a heart cell? Well, by the signaling messengers that are carrying the messages back and forth between the neighboring cells. They actually program the stem cell to become a heart cell. In fact, every cell in your body is programmed to act as it does depending on the neighborhood that it sits in.
Right. So this is why the process of cleaning up and detoxing and keeping a clean environment in our system is so important.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you've now developed a technology to, you have product lines. First you started with the ASEA, what is it, a water or a drink that provides these molecules that do everything you just talked about.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the first time in history, we've been able to take these molecules that are produced inside the mitochondria outside of the cell and preserve them in a stabilized form. So basically what we do with ASEA is we take pure salt water, that's sodium chloride in water, and it goes through the same process that the mitochondria uses to produce these signaling molecules inside the cell. And we found a way or a method in order to preserve or stabilize these molecules so that they don't vanish and go away. Inside the cells, they vanish in a millionth of a second. And when I first came up on this method to produce them, I saw that they were preserved for 10 minutes, many hundreds of thousands of times more than I thought it should be possible in science. And so as an atomic physicist, I wanted to find out, well, what was the story here? Why were they preserved so long? Found out that there are quantum mechanical reasons why these free radicals can be shielded and preserved inside a saltwater solution outside of the body. And that's what this new ASEA technology is. These are these same signaling molecules that are produced when you're young in large amounts inside the body that now are able to be supplemented when you get older or when you have cell damage that compromises the mitochondrial function inside your cells.
See, now you've even piqued my interest even more. You've said the word quantum physics, and my mind is already kind of melting, so I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, to say a very bad pun. But so there are elements of quantum physics, and the whole, as we talked about epigenetics, and that whole understanding is what's going into the stabilization of those molecules long enough, as you say, to be able to be deliverable as a supplement.
Oh, yes, of course. Everything is quantum physics, actually. On the atomic level, everything is quantum.
Well, I can't wait to have you back, and we'll talk about that as our conversation. Well, let's talk about your new skincare product. You have tell us what it is and how it works, and how you've applied this technology of the redox signaling for a skincare product.
Well, the ASEA product is difficult to measure, because it takes care of cell damage that exists inside your body. We decided, or at least the ASEA company decided, that if we were able to find a way to apply it to skin, the skin would be able to, again, undergo this repair and replace mechanism, and it would make skin look better, which is probably more important for some people than their health. So what we did is created these little structures, or this gel structure that would be able to hold these redox signaling molecules in their stable form without destabilizing them, and put them in there about 5 times the potency. So now it's absolutely easy to manifest to see what these molecules are doing. If you have a skin that has a rash or a problem and of any sort. I forgot to mention, by the way, that these molecules are also in this form antimicrobial. They kill every single bug, including the resistant strain, on contact within 30 seconds. Everything that we've been able to test.
Wow.
And it's perfectly safe for the body. You can put them in your eyes, ears, nose, mouth, in any part of the body, any tissue. You can even put them inside the body without any toxic effect whatsoever.
Well,
we have something. Yeah, that is absolutely
amazing. Well, we have a couple of pictures that we got sent from the publicity department. Do we have those ready, Mike? Are they up? We're looking at the crow's feet example here. I'm sure you've seen that picture that was sent out. And so we're seeing. Do you know what the time frame is on this? How long this person's been using the skincare for these kind of results?
Yeah, a lot of these come from the research done by Dermatest in Germany, and they're 28 days. That's why it's called Renew 28.
Okay, 28 days.
In 28 days, you have this sort of effect. A reduction of.
Yeah, so we're looking at, for the people listening to this, we're looking at, and we should link up these pictures on our site, but we're looking at a really dramatic change in a woman's crow's feet around her eyes. Let's take a look at the next picture, Mike. And this is a scalp. It's in black and white here. He was suffering from, do you know what this one was exactly, Gary?
Well, I can't comment on exactly what, but it's simply blotches.
But it really cleared up. The blotches are very clear.
these happen when sun is exposed or skin is exposed to sun in older people. They get these blotches. Some of them have to be removed surgically. And this Renew 28 then was able to do that in just a few days.
That's pretty amazing. How long has this
Yeah.
product been out on the market now?
The gel has only been out, the Renew 28, about 4 months now, or 5 months.
Okay.
Um,
Well, Harold Corner, who's our local rep here, he is just high as a kite every time he talks about all of the products. He's been taking the drink for quite a while. He's loved that. And he's now talking about the skincare like there's no tomorrow. So I know you got one big enthusiastic person here in Pennsylvania.
we have many.
I can believe that. Well, now you got
Right.
me, and I'm sorry. Well, like you said, it's people are more concerned about how they look, but the skin, as I understand it, is the largest organ in the body, and it's one of the most important organs for the process of detoxing. Am I right about that?
That's correct. For protection, for detoxification, for sensory inputs, and also, the sweat and other things help to eliminate. It's a part of the very important process of elimination of these toxins from the body.
Now, this is just a quick aside to an area. I don't know if this is your area of expertise, but the actual act of sweating. Um, from a lot of different perspectives, from the Native American perspective, it's one of the most important ways to detox. Exercise enthusiasts, personal trainers tell you it's so important. Martial artists tell you it's so important to sweat every day. Uh, Dr. Brian Clement from the Hippocrates Institute talks about taking a sauna every day. What's your understanding about skin specifically as it related to detoxing and the importance of actual sweating and
Yeah.
how frequently you should do that?
Well, as you said, the skin is the barrier between you and the rest of the world. It keeps the toxins out, and it also keeps the sweat and such has more surface area in order to extract the toxin than almost any other part of the body. So inside the sweat glands, as well as inside the kidneys, there are these little beautifully designed tubules that are able to collect the toxins in large amounts. And imagine now all over the whole body being able to eliminate toxins. It is actually the biggest organ, or the most important organ as far as this is concerned, besides possibly the kidneys,
Sure.
in eliminating waste.
Has your Renew 28 been shown to accelerate or improve that process?
What the Renew 28 does is it helps to maintain healthy skin cells and to help the body detect and repair and replace the damaged skin cells. So we were talking about the signaling process before. It works on the skin. It works every place in the body. In fact, it works in plants, animals, and every form of life on Earth.
Huh.
This redox signaling is probably the most fundamental process by which cells detect and repair damage.
Well, I'm
So
fascinated we haven't heard more about it from other research labs and other places.
you will.
Okay. Well,
Uh,
epigenetics
well,
is becoming quite a buzzword in a lot of the more progressive thinkers around.
let me mention this. You're familiar with James Watson and Crick, and the work they did on the DNA structure?
No, no.
Okay, well, James Watson was the guy who discovered the helical structure of DNA
Okay.
back in the time. I don't remember how many years ago, but he's a internationally respected and renowned scientist. He now has dedicated his life to redox signaling and understanding reactive oxygen species inside cells. He is now asking for billions of dollars of research on this subject. He says that redox signaling and the technology that will come forth from it is more important than his discovery of DNA.
Wow.
and so he's excited about it.
I'd say.
And he's not the only one.
I'd say.
There will be many people who understand this technology who get very, very excited about the possibilities that it presents.
Well, this is really fascinating. And before, when we were talking earlier today on the phone, you said something to me that I found so intriguing. I wanted to bring it up here on the podcast, and it's kind of what we're talking about. There's all this amazing research that's happening out there, and it doesn't always seem like it's getting like the knowledge isn't getting to the frontline people who could actually use it. Who's doing most of the best research today? I mean, not in areas, not specific names.
It's really a loaded question there. I've heard it in my career, since I'm involved in medical research and have been around the world. I've worked at Harvard Medical School and seen some of the projects that they've worked on. And I've seen other areas. There are wonderful things happening all over the world. We have over 5,000, for example, articles written in peer-reviewed journals about technologies that could rid us of cancer, AIDS, malaria, most of the things that plague the earth today. And we cannot commercialize these technologies for various reasons. They're too expensive. They can't be patented. You can't make profit on them. There are several reasons why these technologies, which do exist and are viable, cannot make it out there. So all of good scientists are doing excellent and extraordinary work in the field of medicine. But the problem is actually a political or economic problem, that it doesn't allow us to get these solutions to the people who need them.
Well, if I can feed back to you, what I kind of heard is that unless there's a good way to make money from a process or a product, it's often, even if it's more effective, it's often not pursued in lieu of other processes or products which are more profitable, basically.
Well, of course. I mean, you can't patent a carrot.
Well, and that's part of the problem. You can't patent broccoli, and broccoli.
If you're going to spend $800 million to $1.2 billion in research, you've got to have some way to pay for that research. Only the large pharmaceuticals really have those sort of resources. Institutions, governments even bend under the weight of the type of investment that's necessary, and it's very risky.
Yeah.
And so why would you study vitamin E or something that's easily accessible at your corner market when you can't make a profit on it? You can't patent it or secure the technology.
Sure.
I think the health and wellness field, to tell you the truth, is one of the solutions, because yes, they can make a profit on selling wellness in this situation.
Right. Well, that's what that's what our whole mission here is with our Journal of Lifestyle Medicine, is to find ways that work for the people consuming it, but also manage to allow the professionals to earn a decent living and an honest living. So good points all around. Well, I want to thank you, Dr. Gary Samuelson. This has been a fascinating conversation, and I got to say, I'd love to have you back on where we can just talk quantum physics and epigenetics. I think that would be loads of fun. Okay. So that will do it for today's conversation on the podcast. Join us again next week for the Journal of Lifestyle Medicine podcast. You can find us on Facebook, iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, and of course on the Journal of LifestyleMedicine.com. Look for our Integrated Medicine Professionals group on Meetup.com. And until next week, Yuns, be careful out there.